Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, Pesachim Ayin Ches. We are 2 lines from the top of the Amid, and going back to our Mishnah, which gave us a full list of various karbonis that are time-related karbonis, and therefore can be brought even on Shabbos, or even when Yisrael are Tamei, you still proceed with the Hakrava. Now, yesterday we learned about a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Lezer says, even when only the dam of a carbon is present, you can proceed with the zrika. Rabbi Shua says, you need dam and basar here. You need both elements of the carbon, the dam, which is the matir, which enables the basar to be eaten, or the chelev to be brought on the mizbeach. You need the dam, and also either a kazayis of the chelev, or a kazayis of the basar. When you have both those elements here, and both are tar, you can proceed with the hakrava. Says the Gemara 2 lines from the top, Nema masnisin d'likarbiyesi. It would appear that our Mishnah, which allows them to bring a carbon betuma, when the entire carbon is tamei, the dam, the basar, is not following Rabbi Yosef's shita, who seems to hold like Rabbi Yeshua that you need to have both elements, dam and basar, present, fit for hakrava, tahar. What do we see that Rabbi Yosef subscribes to Rabbi Yeshua's shita? The Sanya Rabbi Lezer Omer, hatzitz meratz al achilas. We learned yesterday that even when Yisrael bring a carbon betuma, the general consensus is that tuma dechuya b'tzibur, rather than hutra b'tzibur. Hutra would mean that it's completely mutter l'chatchila. Dechuya means the tuma concern is a concern. We acknowledge its presence, but we override it. And the tzitz must come, the tzitz wear, which the Kohen Gadol wears on his forehead, must come and help us override that tuma, to negate the effect of the tuma. Rabbi Lezer says, not only can the tzitz assist and be of benefit to the dam which goes on the mizbeach, which is the main element of kapara, but it is also meratza al achilas. It is helpful and beneficial for the achila portion of the carbon as well, for the basa portion as well. It brings it into the fold. Rabbi Yosef, no, eina tzitz meratza al achilas. The tzitz is only effective for the dam thing which goes on the mizbeach, but not on the achila portion, on the basa which is eaten. It cannot benefit that part at all. Now, the fact that Rabbi Yosef makes reference to the basar portion, it says can't help it. Apparently, he needs it. We need to incorporate it in the hakrava process. The Gemara figures at this point. From the very fact that Rabbi Yosef says that a tzitz cannot apply itself to the achila portion of the carbon, apparently Rabbi Yeshua Svirli, he holds like Rabbi Yeshua the Amar Be'inan Tarti, who holds that you need both elements incorporated in the hakrava to enable zrika and hakrava. Otherwise, why would Rabbi Yosef be concerned about the basa portion? The tzitz can't help the basa. Apparently, you need the basa here in the fold to allow zrika, to allow the hakrava. Now, that being the case, Nei Mahashta, let's say now that we discovered that Rabbi Yosef holds you need both elements, Masnis like Rabbi Yosef. Our Mishnah which seems to ignore the basar. Our Mishnah which says that you can bring a carbon betuma, despite the fact that everything is tamei. Doesn't seem to be in line with Rabbi Yosef, because if the carbon is tamei, you need ritzui tzitz. Sure, the tzitz can help for the dam, but it can't help for the achilos, it can't help for the basar. Leaving it out of the process, it can't be considered as part of the hakrava process, in which case you don't have basar taking part in the carbon. If Rabbi Yosef needs both elements taking part in the hakrava, you don't have it here. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Does Rabbi Yosef hold like Rabbi Yeshua, who says you need 2 elements? Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Lezer Svirli. He will hold like Rabbi Lezer. The Amar Dam, Afal B'Shein Basar. Dam is enough, even if the basar is not here or is tummy. That being the case, we can bring a carbon betuma. The tzitz will take care of the dam, will enable the zrika of the dam. The basar, it's irrelevant. You don't need the basar here. If that's the case, that according to Rabbi Yosef, there's no concern about the presence of basar. Regarding what halacha? With respect to what application? Did Rabbi Yossi say that the tzitz is not effective and cannot benefit the achila portion? If in any case it's irrelevant. You don't need the achila portion. Wouldn't that prove that, according to Rabbi Yossi, you need the basar as part of the akrava? Responds the Gemara. Now, according to your question, what about Rabbi Lezer? The Omar had tzitz muratze. Rabbi Lezer was the one who says tzitz does help the achila. Well, according to him, certainly the basar is not a necessary ingredient. We know that for a fact. He disagreed with Rabbi Shua yesterday. Given the Amar dam avle b'she'en basar, being that Rabbi Lezer holds dam is enough, even if there's no basar, ha tzitz muratze al achilas l'may hilchasa. What's the point of the tzitz applying itself to the achila and helping the achila? You don't need the basar portion. Oh, apparently, the point of tzitz being muratze al achila is not with respect to enabling the hakrava, enabling the processing of the carbon. Rather, it's for a different halacha. Ela lemike be'ebe pigel. The point of the tzitz coming at the aid and assistance of the achila portion is simply to allow it to become established with pigel, to be considered pigel. If one brings the carbon with a machshava that he's going to eat the basar beyond the zman achila, the carbon is pigel. If one eats that basar, he gets karas. As Rashi points out, this is provided the carbon doesn't have other psulim to go along with the pigel. It needs to be basically a kosher carbon, except for the pigel aspect of it. When we have basar, which is tamei, how would that become pigel? The point of the tzitz is to bring that basar into the fold, to ignore the fact that it's tamei. We treat it as though it would be tar, and it takes part in the hakrav of the carbon, in which case it turns into pigel. So that would be the point of tzitz being muratze the basar. Not that we need it as part of the hakrava, but rather lemik baby pigel. That's number one. Or to extract it, to eliminate, to remove the me'ila aspect. A carbon which is kaddish has me'ila. If a person has nano, he has to pay back hegdish, keren, the chaimish, etc. Once the zikr takes place, in which case the Hashem gave it to the kohanim, it's no longer considered kachi Hashem. Its hegdish state has been downgraded. Once the mizbeach received it, accepted it as a carbon. That's a general formula. After zrika, the basar is no longer me'ila laden, and the chiddush here is, even if this basar would be tamei, in which case, practically speaking, the kohanim can't eat it, but the me'ila no longer is applied. Now will be the chiddush of the tzitz being meratze al achilis. It allows the zrika to be applied to the achila portion, even when it's tamei. For what purpose? So that we consider it as though it took part in the processing and the akrava of the carbon. It's already post zrika, and the hegdish aspect has been downgraded, and there's no longer meal. So that's the point. Regarding these two aspects, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua are having their discussion. Ella, again, lemik baby pigel, to establish the pigel, ula pugim them ila, to establish the basar and pigel, and to remove the me'ila aspect, kamifliki. They are discussing, they are having a machlekes. Rabbi Lezer savar miratze tzitz iluya. Rabbi Lezer holds that even when the carbon is tummy, the tzitz could come along and help it out. Be miratze, be machshir, the basar aspect as well. With respect to what? Not that you need the basar as a vital ingredient in the akrava. Rabbi Lezer doesn't hold Rabbi Shua's stipulation that basar needs to be present. Rather, it's with respect to the other halachas. Umashvili ketur, the tzitz comes along and treats the basar as though it would be tar, in which case it can take part in the akrava process to the extent that it gets pigel. The kavah lebe pigel, the basar now becomes pigel because it underwent the akrava process. Umapik lebe de me'ila, and it will remove the me'ila aspect. Once again, it underwent the process of akrava. That's Rabbi Lezer's shita. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. Rabbi Yossi savar lo miratze tzitz iluya, the tzitz cannot be applied on the basar. It only works on the dam, which goes in the mizbech, but on the chelik ha'achila, which is edible. What is an afkamina? For those two aspects. For lo yimashvile ketar, it won't consider it as though it's tar, v'lo kabbalah pigel. With respect to pigel, it won't help the basar It won't enable the basar to be established as pigel. Nor will the me'ilah element be removed. So in short, Rabbi Lezer holds the tzitz can help even basar with respect to pigel losing its me'ilah status. Rabbi Yehuda says tzitz will not help for the chelik achila of the korban. It only helps for the chelik hakrava, and therefore that basar, which is tamei, is not considered to have taken part in the akrava of the korban. There's no pigel there, and it will still have its me'ilah status. But in any case, when it comes to being makar b'korban, to begin with, Rabbi Yossi perhaps holds like Rabbi Lezer that you never need the dam and basar here. As long as you have the dam, that's sufficient. And therefore, there's no kasha in our Mishnah. Sure, you can be makar b'korban, which is tummy, when the dam and the basar is tummy, because you don't need the basar to be tar to enable zrik. Maskefler Rav Mari, he has the kasha like this. Nihi nami, the Rabbi Yossi savar Rabbi Lezer. True, you want to suggest that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Lezer. Dam is enough. You don't need both elements present. Fine. Bishleim zvachim. That explains the animal karbanis mentioned now Mishnah. Ikadam. You have the dam going on the mizbeach, and that's enough. Oymar nami ikakaimitz. The minchas oymar has that kaimitz, which also goes in the mizbeach, which is like, it's equated to the dam concept. It's separated from the korban, put on the mizbeach, and the tzitz will come at the assistance of these items because they're going on the mizbeach. And therefore you have an akrova, and you're okay. Lechem apanim nami. We're going through the list that the Mishnah brought. The zvachim, the oimer. Now we're going to the lechem apanim there as well. Lechem apanim nami ika bezichen. You have a chelik going on the mizbeach. The spoon's full of the kteris. They're like the kmitza by a korban, like by a mincha, and therefore, in that case, we say that the tzitz will enable these things to be brought on the mizbeach. And even if you don't have anything else, there's no basar, there's no leftovers there, that's okay, because according to Rabbi Lezer, you don't need any more than the portion brought on the mizbeach. That explains these items. But what are we going to do regarding the shtei halechem, which don't have any portion placed on the mizbeach? Now, if according to Rabbi Yossi, tzitz can only enable something that's going to be brought on the mizbeach, such as the dam, as the kaimetz, etc. When it comes to shtei halechem, brought on Shavuos, it's completely achila. If the tzitz can't be meratza on achilas, then how could you bring this korban? Ma'ikal l'meimar. V'chitem l'kar v'mar. Perhaps as the Gemara was speaking about a typical shtei halechem, which comes together with the kvasim. So you have something on the mizbeach. The dam of the kvasim goes on the mizbeach. If that's the case, haynu shal mitzibur. The Mishnah already mentions that a bit further down the list. Zivche shal mitzibur. Those two kvasim brought on Shavuos. Imkein havalu harba. Now, if shtei halechem is only enabled because of the kifsi atzeres that come with them, then in total you really only have 4 examples of karbanis brought betumah in our Mishnah. Vanan chamisha tnan. The Mishnah tells us we have 5. Where are the 5? You can't count shtei halechem separate from the kvasim, because you can't bring shtei halechem independently. Rashi says that sometimes they would bring it independently if they had no kvasim. But apparently our Mishnah is speaking when you have the kvasim with them, because otherwise you don't have a chelik on a mizbeach. Now, if the shtei halechem are coming together with kvasim, then that's the next item in the Mishnah. The zivche shal mitzibur. So really, you only have 4 cases in the Mishnah. The Mishnah clearly gives us number 5. So apparently, this can't be the pshat. You can't say that Rabbi Yossi holds that tumah is duchuya b'tzibur, which requires that tzitz. And although the tzitz can only come to help the portion that goes in the mizbeach, that's all you need. Because Rabbi Yossi follows Rabbi Lezer's shita that all you need is the dam, you don't need the bus. But that won't work because the shtei halechem has nothing on the mizbeach. Ella, says the Gemara, Kasav Rabbi Yossi, let's switch things around. He holds tumah hutra b'tzibur. Rather than say tumah is dechuy, it's overridden, in which case you need the tzitz to come help us out. He holds tumas mutter l'chatchila. You don't need the tzitz to enable anything. The fact that the Torah says bring these things b'tumah indicates that it's mutter l'chatchila. Everything that you're going to bring is mutter. Shtei alechem are mutter to be brought, even if there's nothing on the mizbeach. And therefore, you are yoitzer, you're akrava. Is that so? That according to Rabbi Yossi, tumah is mutter b'tziva v'atanya. We learned in the Brisa, in Maseches Yuma, the Brisa is speaking about the Kohen Gadol, who was separated 7 days before Yom Kippur, brought to the Beis Hamikdash, and was kept separate from his environment to keep him tummy. Likewise, the Kohen, in preparation for the Parah Aduma, would be separated for 7 days. The Brisa says, Echad zeh, whether the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, or the Kohen in preparation for the Parah Aduma process, they would ensure that he's completely tar, and therefore, Mazan alav kol shiva, they would make the hazah from the Ephah Parah Aduma through the entire 7 days, just in case he's tamei, and they would use mikol chatois sheyusham. They would take Ephah from all the Parah Adumas that they had, just in case one's not good, they'd use the other ones. Apparently they had a collection of all the Parah Adumas that were brought from the time of Moshe. Divrei Rav Meir. Rabbi Yossi, ein mazon olav el shlishi v'shvi'i b'lvad. You don't have to do the hazar every day, just on the 3rd and the 7th. The more they explains the basis of the machlekes. Now, what pertains to us is as follows. V'isal gadaita kasav Rabbi Yossi, tumah hutra b'tzibur. If you maintain that according to Rabbi Yossi, tumah is mutter b'tzibur, lo mali hazar klal. Why get involved in doing hazar to ensure that he's not tamei? If he's tamei, go ahead. Tumah is mutter b'tzibur. Oh, ela machavarta masnisin like Rabbi Yossi. Apparently Rabbi Yossi holds tumah is not mutter; it's duchuya b'tzibur. And therefore, you need to ensure that he's not tummy. Try to avoid the tumah. That's why they did the hazah. Now, getting back to our sugya, although the Mishnah speaks about bringing karbanos for tumah, it's the chuya. It's not a lechatchila. You need the tzitz to help us out and to allow that hakrava. If that's the case, the tzitz is only effective for the chelik, which goes on the mizbeach, the dam, the koimitz. But it won't be mata the shtei alechem, which is completely free of the mizbeach. There's nothing on the mizbeach from the shtei alechem. So how does the Mishnah allow you to bring it? And Rabbi Yossi holds tzitz cannot be effective for the oichel portion of a korban. Apparently our Mishnah is not following Rabbi Yossi. El machavarta, apparently the correct approach is, indeed, masnisan the like Rabbi Yossi, our Mishnah is not in line with Rabbi Yossi. Continues the Gemara. We had another Rabbi Yossi yesterday. In a Bryce, Rabbi Yossi said, I agree with Rabbi Lezer's Shita by Menachos, by Karbonis. I agree with Rabbi Yeshua's Shita by Karbonis and by Menachos. Again, Rabbi Lezer is the one who holds that you don't need both ingredients. You don't need the dam and the basar to allow the zrika. Dam is enough. Rabbi Yeshua says both elements are required. Rabbi Yossi expresses his approval. I agree with Rabbi Lezer by karbanes, by menachos. I agree with Rabbi Yeshua by karbanes and menachos. Now this seems to be a contradictory statement. How do we understand Rabbi Yossi's words? For Rabbi Yossi, shtora, a document, mezachi lebeitreyu. Is he granting it to both litigants? Either he's right or he's right. How can he seem to agree with Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua at the same time? The Sanya. Which price are we referring to? Rabbi Yossi. Royani. Esther Rabbi Lezer. I agree with Rabbi Lezer's Shita. Bezvachem by animal karbanos. V'dir Rabbi Yeshua bezvachem. And I agree with Rabbi Yeshua by animal karbanos. V'dir Rabbi Lezer b'menachos. I agree with Rabbi Lezer by a menachah that all you need is the koimetz. Forget about the shirayim. And I agree with Rabbi Yeshua by menachos. Explains the Gebrisa. What does he mean? I agree with Rabbi Lezer. Divrei Rabbi Lezer bezvachim. I agree with Rabbi Lezer when it comes to karbonis. Show you omer dam afal b'shein basar. He says, say dam is enough even if there's no basar fit for akrav. So I agree with him. And likewise, I agree with Rabbi Yeshua. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua bezvachim. Show you omer if ein dam in basar. So the dam is not available. The dam is tummy. You can't partake in the basar. Can't eat the basar, and likewise, it made basar and dam. If the basar is not available, it's not here, or it's tummy, you can't be zarek to dam. Divrei Rabbi Lezer b'menachos. I agree with Rabbi Lezer by mincha. Shei omer kaimitz, aval b'shein shom shirayim. As long as the kaimitz is available, the shirayim is irrelevant. The Rabbi Yehuda Menachis, and I hold like Rabbi Yehuda by Mincha, Shal Eimer, just the opposite. Ein shom shirayim, ein kaimitz. If there's no leftovers, you can't bring the kaimitz on the mizbeach. Ein kaimitz, ein shirayim. There's no kaimitz, no shirayim. In any case, our head's spinning at this point. Which way is he going? Is he following Rabbi Lezer or Rabbi Yehuda? Amalei, Abaye responded, Mistaver Kamar. He didn't mean to conclude like any one of these shittas. He wasn't expressing his opinion and his approval. He was simply saying like this. It's Mistaver. It seems to be correct that the same halacha between Rabbi Lezer and Yehuda pertaining to karbanis, the source root of their machlekes is karbanis, is the psukim by karbanis. We discussed yesterday the psukim of Oila and Shlamim. That forms the basis of the machlekes. And Rabbi Yossi is simply saying that you meant to know it's mistaver that the same discussion they have by karbanis, whether or not you need the dam of the basar, applies to menachas as well. Whether or not you need the kaimitz with the shirayim. That's all he was saying. He wasn't coming to paskin halach. Mistaver kamar. He was simply speaking a svar. He was saying it's correct. It seems correct that the halacha is applied to menachas as well as vachim. Kikoi bezvachim. And the Bryce is simply saying like this. When Rabbi Yossi was engaged in the sugya and the meseches of zvachim, he said like this: Amar mistavra ki echad pligi bezvachim pligi nami b'menachos. Just as the halacha, as the machlekes between them, is applicable to karbanis, likewise it's applied to menachos as well. Koi b'menachos. When he was engaged in the sugya of menachos, he said just the opposite. Amar mistavra ki echad pligi b'menachos. It's logical that the same machlekes they have by a mincha, pligi nami b'zvachim, will be extended and applied to karbanis as well. Fine, that's all he meant to say. Amar le, Rav Papa responds, Hateinach, I understand the first part. Kikoi b'zvachim. When he was learning zvachim, he said, Amar mistavra, ki echad pligi b'zvachim, pligi nami b'menachos. Just as they're having a machlekes by karbanis, the same halach applies to menachos. Why would he have to inform us this element? The ikar kroi kiksivi b'zvachim ksivi, because the source psukim are relating to animal karbanis. So that's Rabbi Yossi's chiddush. He's saying that the same machlekes is extended to menachos as well. So that's a chiddush. But what's the chiddush in the reverse? El ki koi b'menachos. But when he was engaged in learning menachos, v'amar, and he said, mistavra ki heiche de pligi b'menachos, pligi nami b'zvachim. It's mistavra just as they're having a machlekes by a mincha. They'll have the same machlekes by animal karbanis. What's the point of teaching us that? Where are those psukim? Those source psukim stated by animal karbanis. Yeah, to say that the concept is extended to menachos, that's a chiddush. But to say that the concept is extended to zvachim, that's self-understood. The psukim are speaking about zvachim. Apparently that's not the meaning in Rabbi Yossi's words. Ella says the Gemara like Kasha, this is what Rabbi Yossi meant to say. He meant to strike a compromise between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yehuda. Roya ani estiv Rabbi Lezer. I agree with Rabbi Lezer's shita that as long as you have dam available, that suffices and enables the akrava. Benitma, in the case where the basar is tummy, it's here, but it's tummy. You can do the zrika. In that aspect, I follow Rabbi Lezer. V'di Rabbi Yehuda ba'avad v'sarav. However, when it comes to the basar which was lost or burnt, in which case it's not really here, in that case I follow Rabbi Yehuda, who says you can't proceed with the akrava in this manner. So that was the pshat in Rabbi Yossi. He was striking a compromise, somewhat like Rabbi Lezer, somewhat like Rabbi Yehuda. Says in Rabbi Nitma my time. Why, when it comes to Nitma, does Rabbi Yossi follow Rabbi Lezer and says you can bring the carbon, you can be zarek to dam, mishum demeratzi tzitz. Apparently, it's because the tzitz helps things out. Otherwise, what's the difference between tamei and burnt? That's because the tzitz will come to our assistance and enable this carbon for akrava. So although you need the basar, but the tzitz will address the tumah and the basar as well and incorporate it into the akrava. Whereas if the basar is completely gone, went missing, you can't bring the carbon because you need both elements. Is that the case? We've just quoted Rabbi Yossi himself to hold that tzitz can't help the achila portion of the carbon. Apparently this can't be the pshat Rabbi Yossi. Elul, says the Gemara, like kasha. The answer must be like this. The pshat in Rabbi Yossi's statement is as follows. He struck the following compromise between Rabbi Lezer and Bishur. Royan is the Rabbi Lezer b'tzibur. I agree with Rabbi Lezer by a carbon tzibur, that even if the basar is tamei, you can proceed with the akrava. Royan is the Rabbi Bishur b'yachid. By a private carbon, you can't proceed with the zrika when the basar is tamei. Why? What's the difference? But tzibur my time. Why is tzibur better than yachid? Apparently, mishum the tumah hutra b'tzibur. A carbon tzibur can be brought b'tumah lechatchila. It's mutter. You don't need it sits to come help us out. That's why Rabbi Yossi holds, even when the basar is tummy, just proceed. Although you need the basar to take part in the akrava, it's taking part. Because it's mutter to do this. The Torah regards this as a perfectly perfect carbon. As opposed to a carbon yachid, which is not mutter. In that case, when the basar is tamei, you don't have it as part of the akrava. Because it sits cannot benefit the achila portion. Is that the pshat Rabbi Yossi? Why when it comes to tzibur does he favor Rabbi Lezer? Because tumah is mutter b'tzibur? That doesn't either work. Chada, number one, the shamas le Rabbi Yossi. The amar tumah tchoyi b'tzibur. Haven't we just concluded that according to Rabbi Yossi, that a raya from the Kohen Gadol who had the hazah before Yom Kippur, that proved to us that tumah is not mutter b'tzibur, it's the tchoyi b'tzibur, in which case you need the tzitz. In which case the basar can't benefit from the tzitz because the tzitz can't be effective for the achilas according to Rabbi Yossi. So why would Rabbi Yossi allow doing zrika on a carbon whose basar is tummy, even if it's tzibur? What difference does it make? That's number one. V'oid, in addition, ibet tzibur. If we're speaking about a carbon tzibur, Rabbi Yossi says, I follow Rabbi Lezer by carbon tzibur. In dispute with Rabbi Shua. When it comes to tzibur, even Rabbi Shua would agree it's fine. Ibet tzibur, Rabbi Lezer machshe v'lo Rabbi Shua. Do you mean to say that according to Rabbi Lezer it's kosher when the basar is tummy, but not Rabbi Shua? Ha'amris, haven't we said earlier, at the end of yesterday's daf, but tzibur, when it's a carbon tzibur, I feel Rabbi Shua might, even Rabbi Shua agrees. You can go ahead and bring that carbon, because even if you need the dam and the basar, you need both elements, but tzibur is motor according to Rabbi Shua. It's not a machlekes at all between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua in that case. So what do you mean now you favor Rabbi Lezer? Rabbi Shua agrees that it's motor. Finally says the Gemara, the pshat must be as follows. Ella royani is Rabbi Lezer b'diavad. Rabbi Yossi meant to say that I favor Rabbi Lezer, who allows the akrava of this carbon, even when there's something wrong with the basar, b'diavad, when it's after the fact. However, initially you're not meant to do this. So Rabbi Yossi struck a compromise. The chatchila I follow Rabbi Shua, but the eved it's okay like Rabbi Lezer. Says the Gemara, but one second, the eved. If when the context of the eved, I feel Rabbi Shua nami moide. Who? Even Rabbi Shua agrees that but the eved, even if the basar is unfit, but the eved it's fine. Chatchila Rabbi Shua says you need dam and basar, but the eved it's not me'akev. So if we're speaking about after the fact, there's no machlekes at all. There's no need for compromising. How do we know that? Diktani, we had a brisa yesterday. Moide Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Shua agrees. Shem zara kurza. That after zrika you're okay. You're not meant to do zrika. If the basar is not fit, is not roy, but after the fact, it's okay. Says the Gemara, yeah. Rabbi Yeshua allowed b'diavad in a case of tumah. If the basar is tamei, it's here, but it's tamei. The chatchila don't do it, but b'diavad it's okay. But suppose the basar went missing or burnt. Rabbi Yeshua would say it's possible even b'diavad. Whereas Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says when it's b'diavad, whether it's tamei or due to getting lost or burnt, b'diavad you're okay. Ha b'tumah, Rabbi Yeshua's statement that b'diavad is okay, that's only pertaining to tumah. Ha b'avid b'sarf. Whereas Rabbi Yossi is referring to even past tumah, even if it's lost or burnt. Kiktani moed Rabbi Yeshua shem zara kurza. When does Rabbi Yeshua say that after the zrika you're okay? Benitma, when the basar is here, but it's tamei. The chatchila don't do it. You meant to have basar tar as part of the hakrava process. But the eved horza it's accepted. Aval ba'avad v'sar fly. But if it's stolen, if it's lost or burnt, even but the eved it's not kosher. because you need to have both elements of the carbon. The basar lost, burnt, is not around. It can't take part in the carbon. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Comes Rabbi Yossi and says, no, Kikam Rabbi Yossi, Royani, Esti Rabbi Lezer. When Rabbi Yossi says, I favor Rabbi Lezer's Shita, but the Evet, after the fact, but Avad the Sarf, that's even pertaining to burnt or lost. And that's the Chiddush of Rabbi Yossi. Lechatchila, I hold that you're meant to have both elements, Roi, Tahor, present, Dam, and Basar, everything here. Bidi Evet, however, even if only the Dam is here, even if the Shirayim, the Basar is Tamei, even lost or burnt, the carbon is still kosher. To conclusion, we have three shittas. According to Rabbi Lezer, all you need really is the Dam. So, regardless of whether the carbon was nitma, whether it's a carbon tzibur, carbon yachad, or even if the basar went missing or got burnt, it's kosher. All you need is the dam. According to Rabbi Yehuda, both elements are needed, dam and basar. So it depends. If the carbon was nitma, if it's a carbon tzibur, then it's mutal lechatchila, and you have the basar as well as part of the akrava. So that's mutal lechatchila. If it's a carbon yachad, in which case you need the tzitz to be meratzah, that only works for the evet. If you zerk that dam b'di evet, it works. Although you don't have the achila portion because the tzitz doesn't help to bring the achila portion into the fold. So it's as though you only had dam without basar, but the evet works. Lechatchila meant to have both elements, but the evet works. But that's only when you have the shiraim, the basar, intact, but it's nitma. Suppose it's completely missing, it's nevad or nisraf. Rabbi Yehuda would hold in this case it's completely possible because you don't even have the basar present. Rabbi Yossi holds in all cases lechatchila don't proceed, but b'diavad the carbon is kosher. And the chiddush is even in the case where it's a carbon tzibur which was tamei, because Rabbi Yossi, keep in mind, holds that a carbon tzibur is not mutter, it's the chuya, and therefore you need to have the tzitz working for you, and the tzitz will not help for the achila portion. So it's as though the basar portion is not really incorporated in the carbon. It's as though it's missing, and therefore lechatchila don't do it, but b'diavad in all cases the carbon is kosher. Continues the Mishnah. We learned in the previous Mishnah that there's a big difference between another carbon tzibur which is brought b'tumah, in which case you bring it but you don't eat it, whereas the Pesach, which is meant for achila, that's the point and purpose of the Pesach, to eat it. If you bring it b'tumah, you even eat it b'tumah. Here the Mishnah will present us with another difference between Pesach and other karbanos. Nitma basar v'chelev kaim. Suppose the basar of the carbon Pesach became tummy, but the chelev portion is still around and is still tar. You can't do zrika. This is a chiddush, even according to Rabbi Lezer. You can't do zrika because the achila of the carbon Pesach is a vital ingredient. If it won't have potential achila, there's no point in doing this zrika. However, nitma chelev v'basar kaim. Suppose the chelev was tummy, but the basar still tar, zeruk is adam, then you're okay. This is with respect to carbon Pesach. When it comes to other karbanos, the halacha is different. Even if the basar is tummy, but at least the chelev is still here. Zerek sadam, you can do zrika. Rashi explains, this is even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who requires the dam and the other element of the carbon as well to be present. Even the chelev allows for that, because the dam is the matter and enables the chelev to be brought in the mizbeach, and you have two aspects, two elements of carbon. And even if the basar is not here, that's okay. Whereas by the carbon Pesach, basar is vital. So Mishnah tells us that if the carbon Pesach's basar became tummy, you can't do zrik. Amar v'gidol marav, that's only the chatchila. Im zora kurtz, but yeah, it works. Says the Gemara, how can it work? V'be'inan achila. Don't we need achila potential? How can you do zrik on a carbon which doesn't even have achila potential? Achila loy ma'ak, that's not mi'ak. L'chatchila, you meant to have achila potential, but b'diavad it works. Says the Gemara, V'oksiv ishlefi achle. Doesn't the pasuk say that the shechita has to be done for the sake of an eater? You can't do it. A shechita of a carbon Pesach for the sake of an ill person who you know for a fact won't eat it. Doesn't that indicate that the achila aspect of the carbon Pesach is very important, is a crucial ingredient? Now, as Tosfos points out, although this pasuk is speaking about the shechita, you're doing the shechita for the sake of an eater. That's important. Whereas the Gemara later will tell us that this halacha only applies to shechita. You can do the zrika for the sake of a non-eater. It doesn't affect the zrika because it's the shechita which enables the achila, and that has to be done for the sake of an eater. Why are you being sheichet to be matar b'achila? So the point of l'shem oichlav only applies to the shechita, not by the zrika. However, says Taisus, since we find that the Torah is so particular, you have to do a shechita for the sake of an eater, shouldn't we assume on our own that this concept can somewhat be applied to the zrika as well, meaning you can only process the carbon if it has potential achila, as opposed to a basa which is tummy. Says the Gemara, limits. This would only be a mitzvah lechatchila. As Rav Gidon Rav tells us, lechatchila, the basa is tummy, don't do the zrika, but the evidence works. Ula akev loy, it's not mi'akev, v'atanya, b'michsas. The pasuk is telling us that the shechita needs to be for the sake of the group, the ones who counted themselves into the group. This teaches that the Pesach can only be nishchat for the sake of its members. Perhaps if you ignored this stipulation, it's still kosher. It's not preferred, but it's still kosher. If he did it for the sake of non-members, fine, he was over al mitzvah, but still the kosher. Perhaps it's only chatchila tamad loymar. Tachaisu again is referring to the members. Hakosov shino of la'akiv. Here we have a repetition, which indicates that it is ma'akiv. That's regarding members. V'iskash oichel menui. We find that the pasuk here connects ishlefi ochlei tachaisu. Both concepts. Number one, that the Korban Pesach is meant for members, tachaisu, and also ishlefi ochlei, for the sake of an eater. So just as the membership aspect is ma'akiv, the eater as well is ma'akiv. So how can you tell me otherwise? The chatchila, the basa is meant to be edible. The makrava is meant to enable achila, but the evet it's okay. How can you say the evet works? El Rav the Amar Rabbi Nasan. Rav is following Shittas Rabbi Nasan the Amar achilas Pesachim le'ma'akva. This potential edibility in the Korban Pesach is not mi'akiv. Let's just stop for a moment and analyze these words. Of course, we're not speaking about the actual eating of the carbon later on, Pesach at night. All agree that's a separate mitzvah. That's not mi'akiv. The kashas of carbon. If the carbon is kosher, then whether or not he actually ate it that night is irrelevant. He's still yotzi. He still has the carbon. He no longer breathes the Pesach Sheni. That's agreed upon by all. That's not a discussion. On the other hand, all agree that if you do the shechita for the sake of a non-eater, for a person who can't eat, or in a case where there's no balam, or the balam is tummy, you've tried to enable a carbon for achila which has no achila. Of course, it's possible. We had a Mishnah earlier that says it's possible. The discussion here is post shechita. The shechita was proper, was correct, but the zrika now is in a situation where you know for a fact there won't be achila. So you had a proper shechita, but an improper zrika. You're processing a carbon which you know won't have achila potential. The carbon is tummy. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Nasan says that's not mi'ak. The chatchila, it should lead to achila, but the evet achilas pesachim le'ma'akva, this potential achila aspect in the carbon doesn't disqualify the carbon if it's not there. Hi Rabbi Nasan, where did we find such a Rabbi Nasan? Ilay Mahar Rabbi Nasan is at the following, the Sani Rabbi Nasan Leimer. When I should call Yisrael Yotzin Pesach Echad. How do we know that all of Yisrael can technically join together on one Pesach? Talmud Leimer v'shachtu oisay kol kahal das Yisrael ben arba'im. This sounds like everybody's joining together. V'chi kol hakol sheichtin, everybody may sheichet together. V'alay ein sheichet ele echad. It's generally one person, Reuven, who takes an animal for himself. Elam Alamed, this teaches us that all of Yisrael can technically join together in one Pesach, even though there's not enough meat to go around for Achila. Evidently, the Achila aspect is not miyakiv. Likewise, in our case, with the basar is tamei, you can still technically bring that carbon. Although not lechatchila, but the Eved, it's hurts, it works. How could you compare, says the Gemara? Dilma Shani Hasan, perhaps there it's different. Why? Because technically, every single individual can have a kazayas. If you view each one independently, I can have a kazayas. If you view that person independently, he can have a kazayas. True, all together won't work. But technically, each person individually can partake in the carbon. In fact, if some decide not to eat the carbon, then the others will have enough. If these pull back and don't eat, there's enough there for the other ones. If those pull away, the other ones will have enough. So although practically speaking, they can all join together, but technically, theoretically, it's right, as opposed to our Mishnah where the basar is tamei. And this Korban Pesach is completely bereft of an achila potential. You can't compare the two things. Perhaps in our case, Rabbi Nassim would agree it's possible. Elah Rabbi Nassim is the following Rabbi Nassim, the Sani. Nimnu olav chabura achas. Suppose one group joined together on the korban, and there was enough to go around for each person. Then another group came about. V'chazur v'nimnu olav chabura cheres. A second group joined. And there's not enough now to go around for the second group. Rishonim sheyesh lan kazayis. The first group, who joined first, providing each person with a kazayis. Oichlan, they eat the korban, upturin, milasas pesach sheni, the pot of pesach sheni they have the korban. However, achroinim, she'elam kazayis, the second group, who don't have enough to go around, a kazayis per person, ein oichlan, they can't eat, v'chayav milasas pesach sheni, they have to bring a pesach sheni because this korban can't be applied to them, because there was no potential achila. That's the Tanakama. The Chachamim hold that achilas Pesachim is ma'akev. You can only process a korban, you can only accept and apply a korban which has achila potential. Rabbi Nassim disagrees. Rabbi Nassim Aimer, Elu ve'elu p'turin and Melasses Pesach Sheni, both groups are part of Pesach Sheni, Shekvar Nizrak Adam. Because the dam was Nizrak, and the korban is applied to both groups. Apparently, even if there's no achila potential, it works. And therefore, when the basar is tamei, such as in our Mishnah, you can do the zrika b'diavad. Says the Gemara, but perhaps there is room to draw a line. Akati, still, dil mashani asim, perhaps there it's different. Di mimshechi hani, chazi lahani, because again, if this group pulls away and doesn't eat, then the other one can partake. So technically, if you view each group separately, they can have achila potential, as opposed to the korban, which is tamei, which can't be eaten in any case. Therefore, there's room to differentiate between the two things. Shani Hasam, the Mimshechi Hani, Chazi Lahani, as opposed to by us, where it's tummy. Im Kain, if that would be the Pshat in Rabbi Nassim, because of that potential achila, Lisni Hoyel Uru'im Limashach, Rabbi Nassim should have said, you know why both are Yotzei? Because of this reason. Because this group can pull away, allowing the other group to eat, and vice versa. Well, he doesn't say that. Mai Shekvar Nizrak Adam. What does he mean when he says, well, both are yotzei because the dam was already in Nizrak? It sounds like he's speaking different language. Shma mino bedam tal yamusa. It's the zrikas adam that determines the status of the korban. Aval achila lemakva. But achila is not miyakif. And that's Rabbi Nassim's concept. Even if a korban does not have achila potential, but the evidence works. You have 100 people here who can't eat, but the dam is applied on their behalf. They have the korban. So getting back to our Mishnah, Rav Gidel, the name of Rav, was following Shita's Rav Nassim. When the basar became tummy after the shchita, the chatchila don't bring it because you meant to prepare the korban for achila. In this case, there won't be achila, but the evidence works in line with Rabbi Nassim's shit. Says the Gemara, why did Rav choose to interpret our Mishnah in line with Rabbi Nassim? Chatchila don't do it, but the evidence works. Why couldn't he just learn the Mishnah simply that this achila aspect is ma'akav b'di'evet? We're following Rabbanon. My duchke the Rav. What compelled Rav the mokim l'masisin l'chatchila? What pushed Rav to interpret the Mishnah as only speaking about l'chatchila? Chatchila you shouldn't do the zrik. But Rabbi Nassim following Rabbi Nassim says the chatchila you shouldn't do, but b'di'evet it works. Nukman Rabbanon. Why couldn't he interpret the Mishnah in line with Rabbanon? I feel the and even b'di'evet you can't do zrika on a karm which is tamei. Why do you prefer lining up the Mishnah with Rabbi Nassim as opposed to the Rabbanon? Rav Masnizika, she say the wording of the Mishnah seemed to be problematic and difficult to Rav. Amai itznan ein zerek sadam. Why does the Mishnah say when the basar is tamei don't do zrika? Listen, it's possible. The Mishnah should have simply said it's possible. Eloshmami no ein zerek lechatchila. Apparently, the Mishnah is saying you can't do lechatchila. Aval di'evet shabed dami, but the it works. And apparently, following Shita's Rabbi Nassim says the achila aspect is there lechatchila, but it's not me'akav b'di'evet. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Nassim, ish lefi achil lamali. According to Rabbi Nassim, who says that achilas Pesachim is not me'akav, the potential achila is not a requirement, b'di'evet at least. Ish lefi achil lamali. What is the pasuk telling us by saying ish lefi achlai? You meant to do the korban for the sake of an eater. What's it coming to teach us? The ba'inon gavra the chazil achila. It's speaking about the person, the owner. The owner has to be royal achila. He can't be tummy. There are two different aspects here. There is the basa, which is unfit for achila. In that case, Rav Nosson says, lechatchila, don't do zrika, but b'diavad it works. The pasuk is directed specifically at the person. Number one, you can't do a shchita for the sake of a person who can't eat. And likewise, you can't even process the carbon and apply the zrika on behalf of such a person. Because the person who's not royal achila, he can't accept this carbon. That's much worse than the basa. By basa, says Rabbi Nosson, if the basa happens to be tummy, but yeah, but it's okay, as long as the person is a royal achila, and he can accept a carbon pesach which is intended for achila. It works for him. But if the person himself is not royal, then how can he have a carbon pesach where the carbon pesach is an achila carbon? He's not royal achila. So in the case of a person who's unfit, then it's ma'akev even b'diavad. But when the basar is unfit, the chatchila don't proceed, but b'diavad it works. Whereas the Rabbanan hold, in either case, it's ma'akev b'diavad. Whether the person or the basar is unfit for achila, the achila potential of the carbon is so crucial, and it's ma'akev b'diavad. Continues the Gemara. Man tana lahad tana Rabban. Whose sheet is reflecting the following price, which says shachtoi lo ichlav. If he did the shchita on the carbon pesach for the sake of a person who can eat, v'zorku damei shloi lo ichlav. But the zrika was performed on account of people who can't eat, a sick person, etc. Ha pesach atzme kosher. The pesach itself is kosher, although you can't eat it, but it's kosher to the extent that a person is yoytze with it. V'atam yoytze b'dech chabasa. His yoytze is choy. He no longer needs to bring a pesach shem. Come on, whose sheet is reflected here? Name Rabbi Nosson, if the Rabbanan should perhaps say that it's Rabbi Nosson, and not the Rabbanan, because according to Rabbanan, the achila aspect is so crucial. In this case, the zrika was for the sake of a non-eater. Apparently, we're following Rabbi Nosson, who says the achila aspect is not so crucial. Afilatim Rabbanan says that no, we could be going even according to Shittas Rabbanan. This carbon will still be kosher. You know why? Ein machshavas oichem bezrika. This halacha that the carbon has to be for the sake of an oichel, that's only applied to the shchita, which enables the achila. So you have to be sheikh for the sake of a person who can eat. But the zrika, that's not coming to enable achila. That's not the shchita which is coming to yimata, the basal achila. The zrika is part of the akrova. During the zrika, it's irrelevant what he had in mind. Even if his machshava was for the sake of a choila, the carbon is fully kosher and can be eaten. Continues the Gemara. Man tana lahad tana rabban. Whose shita is reflected in the following brayso. Hareisha yechoyla b'shas shchita. If a person was ill during the shchita and unfit for eating the carbon, v'cholam b'shas zrika, and during the zrika he was well. Cholam b'shas shchita, or conversely he was unwell. He was well during the shchita. V'choyla b'shas zrika, and during the zrika he was sick and he could not eat the carbon. You can't do the shchita and the zrika in this case. The only way you can do the carbon is if it's on behalf of a person who's completely healthy, from the point of shchita up until the point of zrika. Come on, whose shchita is being reflected here? Name Rabbanan, v'lo Rabbi Nosson. Should we say that it's only the Rabbanan who hold that the achila aspect, the achila designation of the carbon is so important, and the carbon can only be applied to a person who can eat? V'lo Rabbi Nosson, however, it's not following Rabbi Nosson, who doesn't seem to be concerned about the potential achila. And therefore, even if you do the zrika in a state of chayli, knowing that the owner can't eat, it would work. Afilatim Rabbi Nosson, no, this price can be following even Rabbi Nosson. Gavra de chazil achila b'inam. Because even Rabbi Nosson agrees that sure, the basar doesn't have to be tar, but the person, the owner, can only accept the carbon if he's royal achila. And therefore, the only way you can do the shchita and the zrika if it's on behalf of a person who's royal achila and healthy. Man tana lahad tana rabban. Who's the author of the following brayso? Shachta b'tahara. If he did the shchita on the Pesach when he was tar, va'achakach nitma bailam, and then the owner became tummy and he's unfit for achila. Yizarak adam b'tahara. You proceed with zrika b'tahara. Va'al yachal basar b'tumah, but the basar can't be eaten b'tumah. Although the owner can't eat the basar, you can do zrika. Whose shita is this? Come on, who are we following? Amar Belazar machlekes shnuya. Rabbi Nosson. It's actually based on a machlekes, and this is shita Rabbi Nosson, who holds that not only when the basar is not royal achila, can he do zrika? Even when the owner is unfit, you can do zrika, and even lichatchila. That's Rav Lezer's chiddush. According to Rav Nassan, in all cases, you can proceed even lichatchila. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, no, afilu teim rabbanani. This price that can be following even shittas rabbanon, who hold that the achila aspect is so important, generally, but here it's different. Hachmai Skinner was speaking about a case, but tzibur, where the tzibur became tummy between the shchita and the zrika, that afilu betuma namiyavdi. Technically, they can proceed betuma, they can eat the carbon pesach betuma. Therefore, it's called ro'il achila. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, why can't they eat the carbon? You tell me you do the zrika, but they can't eat it. Why can't they eat betuma? If you bring a pesach betuma, you can eat a betuma. We learned that in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, there's a gzera d'rabban. There's a concern. Gzera shema yitma bayil machas zrika. Perhaps next year, the tzibur will become tummy after the zrika, not between the shchita and the zrika, but after the zrika. In which case, the carbon was completely processed b'tahara. Now you can't eat a betuma. You can only eat a pesach betuma if the shchita and zrika were betuma. But if the shchita and zrika were b'tahara and then they became tummy, that's not called a pesach of a betuma. So in that case, they can't eat the carbon. But it will come to a confusion, because they'll say, well, last year, if you allow them to eat in this case, again, we're speaking that the shchita was b'tahara, but the zrika was betuma, in which case the carbon was processed betuma, and you can potentially eat a betuma. If you allow them to eat it, they won't differentiate between the two things. They'll confuse matters, and they'll say, well, next year as well, when the Pesach was brought b'tahara, the shchita and the zrika b'tahara, and then they became tummy, they'll proceed to eat it, and they'll say, they'll say, Eshtokad, look, last year, haven't we become tummy after the shchita, and we still were able to eat the Korban Pesach, because the zrika was b'tumah. But they won't realize that. So they'll say, even this year as well, when the shchita and zrika were b'tahara, and then we became tummy, let's proceed and eat a b'tumah. And they won't know to differentiate. They are stuck at last year, ki is darik dam, when the zrika was done, ba'al tmeim habu. The owner was tummy. In which case the carbon was brought b'tumah, which allows achila b'tumah. Ba'al tmeim habu. Hashta, now when the zrika was b'tahara, they only became tummy afterwards. Ba'al tmeim habu. The owners were tummy during the zrika. In which case they can't eat the pesach b'tumah. So on account of this concern, we don't allow them to eat. In our case, where the shchita was b'tahara, even though the zrika was b'tumah, because that might lead them to allow eating even when the zrika was b'tahara. So at this point in the Gemara, Shittas Rabbanon is that the achilas pesach is ma'akif. If either the basar is inedible or the owner is not ready achila, you can't proceed with the akrav. According to Rabbi Nassan, lichatchila, if the basar is tummy, don't do zrika, but the evidence works. If the owner is unfit, even the evidence doesn't work. According to Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Nassan will hold that whether the basar is unfit or the owner, you can proceed even lichatchila. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Yisrael, another answer we have on the kasha with which we began the sugi. Rav Gidel told us the name of Rav. Even if the basar is tummy, but the evidence works. Whose shita was he following? Rabbi Yisrael, another pshat is Rav Damak Rabbi Shua. He follows Rabbi Shua, who holds that the achila aspect of the Korban Pesach is required lechatchila, but not b'diavad. If the basar is tummy, b'diavad it works. But if the owner is tummy, that's ma'akiv even b'diavad. The Sani, Rabbi Shua, kol hazvachan shepeter, regarding all karbanis. Ben shenitma basar b'chelev kayim, whether the basar is tummy, but the chelev is still around. Ben shenitma chelev u'basar kayim, whether the chelev is tummy, but the basar is still around. Zerek is adam, that enables zrika, because according to Rabbi Shua, you need both elements, the dam and something else. Nazir ba'isa Pesach, however, when it comes to the carbon nazir, or a person bringing a Pesach, there it's different. Nitma chelev u'basar kayim, the chelev is tummy, but the basar is still around. Zerek is adam, because this carbon has eating potential. Nitma basar b'chelev kayim, but if the basar became tummy, even if the chelev is still around, ain't zerek is adam, you can't do zrika, because you meant to lead to achila. That's the chatchila. V'im zarak hortza, but the evidence works. So apparently, according to Rav Nassan, the achilas pesachim is a chatchila requirement, but not b'diavad. That's when the basar is unfit. Nitma ba'alim b'meis, but if the owner became tummy, lo yizra, he can't do zrika. V'im zarak hortza, even b'diavad it doesn't work. A nazir that became tummy has to redo his nazirus. A owner of become pesach who's tummy can't have the krav. The carbon can't be applied to a person who's unfit for achila. So Rabbi Gidlam of Rav, who says that the basar which is Tamei, can allow Zrika l'chatchila, but b'diavad it works, is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would agree if the owner is unfit, then even b'diavad it doesn't work. So conclusion, all agree the shchita for the sake of non-eater is possible. All agree you don't have to actually eat the carbon. That's not going to passel the carbon retroactively. What about if there's a tumor during the zrika? Now we have a discussion. According to Rabban, whether the basar is tummy or the person is tummy, the carbon is passel. According to Rabbi Nassan, when the basar is tummy, but the evet it works. When the person is tummy, it's passel even with the evet. According to Rabbi Lezer, in both cases, Rabbi Nassan would say it's mutal chatchila. According to Rabbi Yehoshua, when the basar is tummy, that's kasha with the evet. When the person is tummy, that's even passel with the evet. Okay, let's make a quick chazar of today's daf. We began that the Mishnah can't be found in Rabbi Yossi. The Mishnah allows a carbon to be brought b'tumah. It's unlike Rabbi Yossi. We conclude that according to Rabbi Yossi, there's a compromise. He holds that lechatchila, you're not meant to do the carbon without the shirayim, but the evet it works. And concluded with the halacha of the achilas pesachim and the various shittas contained therein. Be well, Hatzlacha Rabbah.